mean, one of the things that you said earlier, Adele, is that the experience of museums and also of understanding about history is kind of young in the region. So, what was the what was the how did your audiences engage with the show? What do you think that what was some of the feedback that you received about the exhibition?
This was a really useful and important show to have because I think it really lowered the barriers to entry. Um, she spoke to, different age groups. So even, the senior citizens were coming because they saw in her this kind of vibrant, older lady that was still, active and making work. Certainly my father went to it and, was completely blown over. Yeah. Um, and then for the usual audiences, they're coming in taking their usual Instagram shots, but I think they also got out of the exhibition from the displays of the early work fuller understanding of where these dots came from. So it's not just her being described as the polka dot lady, these kind of generic epithets. I think they managed to get a fuller sense of what an artist is, what she might be. And I think it's the first time where you had a monographic show, right, in the museum. So we also kind of discovered for ourselves that audiences really gravitated to shows that kind of invested in the artist, in the persona and the work, much more than, say, large-scale surveys, which can be a bit more abstract and intellectual. Yeah. So I think she was really good in this respect.
And I think that's the case in a lot of museums. They're starting to do many more monographic shows than group shows. I think that's partly perhaps audience driven. They, they're recognised to be more popular. I think people connect very much to an artist's story, an artist's history, as individuals as well as creative entities, I guess. So that's an interesting development as audiences grow, what they kind of want to see.
So let's talk a little bit about the kind of audience, the broader audience response. But how about for? I mean, there are a lot of similarities, I think, between audiences in Singapore and here in Indonesia. That the museum going is new. But what about for the artistic community? What do you think that they will have learned from about this exhibition? I mean, you spoke earlier about young artists and how big of an impact do you think exhibitions like this have on artist communities in Singapore?
We had artists who were kind of pleasantly surprised to see the early work come out in the exhibition and the breadth that she had and actually the skill. I think it's very easy to kind of dismiss these polka dots, something easily replicable also by third parties or machines. But she has such a skillful hand. So in the early drawings from the 50s and paintings, and the fact that even in the Love Forever series, right? These are works that were initially just made with actually not even a sketch. She went from head to canvas, right? And I think it comes from a place where it's so honed and practiced. She's called it, or critics have called it muscle memory, right? And I think it serves as a kind of inspiration for virtuosity and skill, which is sometimes not spoken about so much in the contemporary sense. Yeah. So I think there may be a kind of willingness to reinvest in those old school skills again. Yeah. And
Okay.
certainly like a friend of ours, Ohiman, who's trying his hand at making these net paintings himself. Yeah.
So let's end on a question that goes back to some of the things that you've spoken about. I mean, what do you see as being Kasama's legacy? I mean, of course, she's still continuing to make work and is vibrant as ever. But what do you think that the legacy of Kasama is? And it's a two-part question on the understanding of art and culture generally, but then also on the art community.
The way she's able to really synthesize so many different references. I mean, from her own personal kind of base, but also from Japan, from the US, from Europe. I mean, she really is one of the first artists to really, I think, make that palpable and to really live that in a very um, sort of all the complexities that that might mean. And I think she was able to really, through her own self-promotion and so on, her own determination, her own sort of obsessiveness is to really transcend these kind of, I guess, boxes that artists can be put into, especially if they're not from the West. I think she was able to really enter the global in a way that very few other artists have. And the fact she's Japanese is one part of it, but I don't think that defines her, which I think for most other Japanese artists that's not the case. So I think that's an incredibly important, and the fact she's a woman, and at this point a very senior woman, I think is a massive legacy, and I think a huge inspiration for, as we've said, younger artists.